Hello everybody, welcome to Chaz Draycott Media and welcome to another episode of Tower Simulator 3. I've previously recorded this episode, which was basically a how-to video on how to play the game. It was not structured, it was not written down, there was no plan basically for that. I just thought, I'm going to go into the game, just see what situation I come across and then tell you how to deal with it, basically. It wasn't fantastic, admittedly. There were a few people it helped, and I'm really glad that it did. But I wanted to make a bit more of a structured version of that. So I'm going to go through as many elements of the game as I can. Now, before I do that, I want to tell you that there are certain commands and certain things that I do not touch upon in the game. So far, anyway, I haven't touched upon them. So this may not answer every question you've got, but I hope that it'll be a bit more structured and do that anyway. So let's jump in, shall we, and have a look. Okay, so here is your main menu. You've got obviously the welcome screen, gives you stats and tells you how bad you've been. Gives you details about your last game as well. Now, a lot of the time when I'm loading into the game, you'll see that this says 0 for everything because I often just go into the game to take a screenshot or two. Career mode, you have the different levels of career based on how many points you've accrued from doing these missions. I've not sort of reset that or done anything there at the moment, so for some reason it's not working for me, but that's for me to figure out. Down here you have your airport databases and your airplane set and your airport radar style, I should say. Databases are basically folders within Tower Simulator 3's certain other folders, so your airports and your aircraft folders, for example. Airplane set, of course, Energies Design if you've got the World Traffic and World Colour mods. Quick Play, of course, you just choose an airport that you're going to go into, you'd hit select, you choose which runways you want to use by clicking in this sort of area here, and then you can choose what type of aircraft you can have by sort of unselecting these. So you've got props, which are the smaller general aviation sort of aircraft. I'm not quite sure what T means. Again, this is something I've not really touched upon too much. Regional is R, N is narrow body, W is wide body, and then C is cargo. I don't really know what the B or any others are, sorry. And of course up here then you've got your weather. You can change it to Metal Live. Doesn't always work the best, admittedly, but still it's an option that you've got. Airport time of day, you can flick that whenever you want. And traffic density. Now in the new hotfix that's coming out in February, this is going to be fixed as well, so this is actually going to do something now, which is really good. Airport radar style databases and airplane set again, as we saw before. Now sometimes if you've got your own custom schedule here, you will click that and it'll basically say not compatible. Doesn't always mean that it's necessarily correct, you know, it can still work when it does say not compatible. You'll just get some errors come up when you load into the game. By the way, if you do want to make your own schedules and so on, the best thing I find is to copy the Energies Design folder, which is in here, and then make your own. Just rename it whatever you want. I tend to call mine Chaz Draycott, and then eventually it will show up in this drop down here, and then you can select that and run your own schedules. Going into multiplayer, it's not actually a screen that I've touched yet, I'm afraid. I do want to record some multiplayer games at some point in the near future. I have a few people lined up for that already, but I must say I'm flattered because there's been a lot of people messaging asking if I could sort of do a multiplayer game with them and record it for a video, so it's great to see that the enthusiasm's there. So thank you everyone that has reached out about that. I will potentially get round to you in the end, so please do be patient with me on that one. Settings, all self-explanatory really. There's not really much that you need to go through here. I usually run my game with low and off on everything, to be honest with you. And add-ons, this is where people seem to think that the Energies Designs folders show up. It's not. You basically just get them in the drop-downs in the earlier screen that I showed you a moment ago in this sort of area down here. The help button down here takes you to a sort of how-to guide of the game. Anyway, we're going to go into a quick play scenario right now, and we are going to do this at, let's go to LaGuardia actually, because this is an airport that I don't always control and I do want to do more videos on. Now I'm going to try doing this on joint approaches here, so we're going to have them going out on 04 and coming in on 04 as well, and 13. We're going to go into this, we're going to go to about midday so it's not mental busy, and just go with the Energies Design database and airplane set. We're going to keep the weather as clear for now because why not have a nice clear day so we can see a bit more, and we'll jump straight in. Now if you haven't played a specific airport for a while and you have quite long loading times, then don't worry about it. You know, this game is a bit strenuous on PCs. We've seen in my webcam before that it can be pretty jumpy, to be fair, when I'm playing this game, but it's just something that will come in time with the optimization of it. So don't worry if you get long loading times, it's been the same for everybody. Okay, here we are in the tower at LaGuardia. I'm just going to go down here to pause the time in the game so we can have a quick look around everything. First off, you are here in what is known as the F1 camera, and these are your individual screens and terminals in front of you. I'll put a little graphic up now that shows you what button takes you to each of these screens, and then we'll go through them one by one. So this view, as I've explained, is F1. You press F1 and it puts you in the tower. You can hold down right click on the mouse and drag around, and you will in turn look around. You can zoom in as well with the mouse wheel, and if you do want to just reset the camera to where it was looking before, you press F1 again and it will do that. Now from this point, you don't have to click or do anything special to move around the airfield. So using E and Q, you can go up and down. This is a bit slow to begin with, and then you can use WASD to go round in a circle. Now if you hold down shift when you do so, I'll show you the example of how that changes the movement. So we're pressing W now to go forward. Just holding shift moves it a lot quicker. You do hit a height limit though, obviously, with how low you can go down there, and you can end up in all sorts of mess like this. But press F1 and you go straight back to your desk. F2 is this screen over here, the aiders as I call it. Again, you can just zoom in and out by scrolling the mouse wheel, and then again, if you just look around with the right click button on the mouse, then you will look from this vantage point. Press F2 and it'll look back at the screen again. Now this is your POV, so this shows you what you should see out of the window if you looked, basically, and it is, as you see, very accurate. I don't really have this running on my screen, to be honest with you, because I know whereabouts I'm pointing when I get used to it. So if you turn that all the way down, it basically gets rid of it. You can play with the icon size and the tag size, the line strength, which is the line between the aircraft and its tag, and then the runway tag sizes and taxiway tag sizes as well. Very self-explanatory. F3 is your radar screen. Now you can zoom in and out of this one as much as you want. Best always to have it basically zoomed all the way out. And you can mess with the separation between aircraft on approach. So you can have 10 nautical miles, 5 and 3. Running at 10 for single-player airports when they're really busy is an absolute lifesaver, so I would definitely recommend that. And again, you get the icon size, which is the T that the aircraft shows up on, the tag size, and the line strength as well. Going over to F4, now this is basically a similar screen to what we saw on the menu earlier. You can click in this sort of area to change what runways you're on and also enable certain aircraft being able to land there. And you'll see up here, every time you make a change, the ATIS changes. Now that is the information. So the aircraft will call up and say, we have information Quebec, ready for pushback, whatever. You get the wind speed here and the degrees. As you can see, no wind at the moment. Pressing F5 takes you down here to the strips. Now this is different for every single airport, the layout of this strip screen. There is a way to customize it as well, which people have been going on about in the Discord, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to customize as well. So if you're not happy with the look of the strips, join the Discord and see if there's anybody that's made an edit of your favorite airport strips from there. Now I've changed my cameras to have F6 mapped all the way out here, and I'm going to show you why this is in just a moment. But normally what you would have with F6 is a camera that looks at this little terminal down on the right here. And to change your camera, it's very, very easy. You can use WASD, just tapping it and being gentle with it, and using E and Q to go up and down, and then potentially get this close to said terminal. Now if you press Control and F6, it will then lock F6 to that position. We'll go back to F1 and we'll go through the screens again. 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6. But the camera that you saw a moment ago was basically something I'd set up. Sometimes I like to be able to get a good view over the airfield and have a look at certain terminals. So for example, somewhere like this at LaGuardia can be a bit of a pain in the backside, this alleyway in particular. So I may set up the camera there so I can quickly flick between it and the tower and have a look at what's going on. At the moment, I'll probably set this to F7 because F7 is usually the camera that looks just a bit higher than the desk so you can see out of the window. At the minute, we've got F7 mapped over here. Now, when you do this and you have the camera set outside the tower, it's only relative to the position and direction of the tower. It doesn't save per airport. So if I went to somewhere like LAX, this would obviously move over terminals 7 and 8 because it's in that sort of general direction. Before I waffle on too long, we'll go back over here, get the camera nice and lined up where we would want it to have a look over this terminal, and I would press Control and F7. And that means now that I can press F1 to go flying back to the tower, 2 for that screen, 3 for that screen, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 takes me all the way over here in the blink of an eye so we can see it. Then we can go back to F1 and look at our tower screens and whatever else we need to. So now it's about time that we get going and look at some aircraft. We're going to get people calling up in a moment. I'm using the left mouse button here to click and drag the airfield around. You can obviously mess with the orientation and so on, but there's not too much point, to be honest with you, because it's a pretty good representation of where you're facing. Now, when the first aircraft calls up, you're going to see their call sign and a little icon, which will be a square, meaning they're ready to push back from the terminal. There's two commands you can give at that point, which will either be pushback approved, following the aircraft's call sign, or just approved if they're a general aviation aircraft, because they do not require a pushback as such.
LaGuardia ground, Brickyard 3467 with information Quebec, requesting push and start.
And there you go, Brickyard RPA 3467. To move the tag around, all you do is click on the little icon itself with the mouse wheel, the middle mouse button, and just drag in whichever direction you want it, basically. And as mentioned before, you can change the tag sizes. The line strength is the thickness of that line in the middle. And then, of course, you can change the icon size as well if you just want it to be a little bit more accurate, because when you have it too big, it's hard to tell what gate they're at. So the command that we will give them is Brickyard 3467, pushback approved, expect runway 04.
Ground 04 pushback approved. Brickyard 3467.
Don't worry about the speed at which they speak either, because they speak very slowly when the airport's nice and quiet. When it does get busier, they reciprocate that and speak a lot more quickly. Another thing worth noting as well,
Endeavour 5438 with information Quebec, requesting push and start.
is to leave about a second of clear space either side, or at least at the end of whatever you're saying, just so you make sure that the game picks it up in the top left of your screen. So we've got another one here, Endeavour 5438, get it right, Chaz.
Tower, southwest 5808 on final 13.
And now we've got an arrival. You can do the same thing here by moving the tag with the middle mouse button, just click on it there and then drag in whatever direction. We're going to get Endeavour pushing back. Endeavour 5438, pushback approved, expect runway 04. You see that little wait at the end there just to make sure that it picks it up? It's always worth doing.
Endeavour 5438.
So let's look at the strips. This is something we didn't see a moment ago. When you give them pushback and tell them which runway to expect, that number of the runway will appear here. Once you've dealt with them, it's always good to just click go, or obviously drag them to the necessary runway you've told them to go to, either 04, 22, or 13, 31. Now up here, wait, I don't tend to click these.
3467 ready to taxi.
We're just going to pause the game for a second so I can speak. I don't usually move these into the arrivals until we've given them landing clearance. One thing that's worth noting is when you get an airport with two runways, sometimes they're parallel, sometimes they're not. If you want them to change runway on one that's parallel, for example, like at KRDU, the southwest terminal is on the right-hand side of the airfield if they're coming in on 05, or it's on the left if they're coming in on, I think it's 23. If they're on the left-hand side, you can tell them southwest 5808, enter final runway 05 right, and they will change runway. You need to remember that after that you still have to give them landing clearance, but it's just a really useful thing if you want them to land on the runway that's closest to the terminal, so you don't have to taxi them all the way over the other side of the airport. Another little rule of thumb is to not really give anybody takeoff clearance until there's no arrivals in this inner circle. If somebody's just about here, then I think it's going to be cutting it a little bit too fine. You can always delay departures. It's not always worth delaying arrivals. Now, as I've mentioned, some of the airports have different layouts on these strips. The LaGuardia ones aren't so helpful, and it's the same with KLAX as well, but the ones at KRDU have got a lot of different sort of procedures and different sort of areas for you to move them around in. So if you're not happy with the strips, do go on the Discord and have a look, as I've said. Okay, we're going to continue time and give Southwest landing clearance. Southwest 5808, runway 13 cleared to land. And you'll see a little tick there, a very faint tick. That means we've given them landing clearance. So we're going to click go, and they're going to come down here. We're going to give this Brickyard a pushback approval as well. As you can see, though, they're all very close together. So this is a good time for us to potentially pause time and then go and press F7 and have a look. So you can see the one we've told to push back is pushing back that way in front of Brickyard 3467. But there's another one at the gate in between them that is ready to push back as well, as you see here. So we're told this one to push back first, then this one, but now this one has called up as well. So we're going to get these two to taxi out. I'll show you the commands for that, and then we'll get this one pushing back afterwards. Before that happens, we of course need to wait for Endeavour 5438 to be ready to taxi. And when they are ready to taxi, their icon changes from this little rounded off square to basically a picture of a plane. Now, you're not going to... Oh, it's been silent for about a minute before that. Again, I'm going to pause, sorry. It's worth noting that sometimes when aircraft are heavy, which you're not going to see any of at LaGuardia, sometimes they will have a little H next to the aircraft here, and that will basically mean that you have to have the word heavy at the end of their call sign. You will not see it on a screen like this, or a screen like this at all. You will have to say something like, it's not going to be a heavy, but you would say Brickyard 3467 heavy, and then it will recognise the rest of the command. There's been a lot of people in the Discord saying that the aircraft aren't listening to them, they're not responding to commands, and it's only certain airlines, but that's because they're missing the word heavy before they're then saying the command, so it's not picking it up at all. I said to myself this was going to be a more structured how-to video, but at the moment I feel like I'm complicating things, so I'm sorry. Endeavour 5438, runway 04 via Alpha Bravo. So the taxiways you can see here, you need to give them as clean a path as possible really, make it not complicated at all, and just be conscious of where other aircraft might push back, and of course taxi as well on arrival. So now we're going to give Brickyard clearance to taxi as well. Brickyard 3467, runway 04 via Alpha Bravo. Once you get used to certain airports as well and their layouts, you'll be able to just call out certain taxiways, know exactly what the route is, where they're going to be going off the top of your head. It does become strangely easy to do. So once this aircraft here has taxied past the other Brickyard, then we're going to get them to push back as well. And their call sign is 4788. Brickyard 4788, pushback approved, expect runway 04. It's probably a better idea to get them to go via Bravo because that's a higher speed taxiway. It's further away from the buildings and they can just curve round in one lump. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask Brickyard 3467 to change their route. Brickyard 3467, runway 04 via Bravo. That aircraft will come to a stop. It will then recalculate and it will then show you the route that they're going to go on with that little yellow line. You can always tell an aircraft to hold position as well, by the way. You would just say, Endeavour 5438, hold position, and they will stop there until you tell them to do something else. You can tell them to just continue taxi, and they will go on the route they were on before, or you can then tell them a different one. An interesting difference between this and Tower 3D Pro is that the arrivals are now orange instead of this lilac colour, so you know which ones are coming in and going into a terminal rather than going out. That helps you avoid any nose-to-nose situations. This is Southwest that's just arrived, and they will probably pull off onto this taxiway here, and hopefully we shouldn't have any issues with those two. And there you go, Southwest taking the high-speed taxiway off to that side.
Brickyard 4788 ready to taxi.
So Brickyard's ready to taxi. We've got another arrival here, which is an American Airlines aircraft. We've told that one to go to runway 04, but we've not given them pushback clearance yet, and they haven't come up asking for landing clearance, which they will do any second now. Brickyard 4788, runway 04 via Alpha. So we're going to tell them to go via Alpha just to avoid Southwest 5808. If you want to know which terminal they're going to, you simply just click on the aircraft and it will show you which gate they're going to, so you can plan their route accordingly and try and get them in the flow of traffic. Now we know that we can definitely push that American out, and that's not going to get in the way because then we can get them to taxi out and get them out of the way of Southwest. American 2131, pushback approved, expect runway 04. You can see there the speed difference as well between the two aircraft on those different taxiways. It's always worth considering that as well. If you're going to put them on a sort of outer taxiway away from the buildings, then you may get aircraft that potentially overtake each other. We had another arrival call up then, which is American 1415. American 1415, runway 13 clear to land. And then we would go down to the strips and then update what we've done on here. Lovely little bit of racing going on around here. I'm interested to see what happens when they get to a sort of intersection, because now that this one has gone past all the terminal buildings, they're going a lot quicker. There could be an interesting scenario here when they try and turn right. Hopefully they don't hit each other like a pair of morons. Oh, and look at that. Now don't take that as gospel, because they don't always wait for each other. That was just nicely choreographed, but it's good to actually have got that in the video as an example. I didn't plan that at all. Southwest 5808, taxi to ramp via Alpha. So as you see, Southwest is going to join on there and follow Brickyard 4788. We've got another Brickyard calling up ready to taxi, and JetBlue as well, and then they're ready to taxi now, as you see, because they've become an aircraft. Just going to check, actually, we've got nothing on arrival before we go and do this. We've got another aircraft ready to come in. But we'll be okay. What we're going to do is just ignore all the rest of them at the moment, and we're going to show you the different commands for when you want an aircraft to take off. There's so many different things you can say. There's simple ways and complicated ways of doing this. For the first one, we're going to go for the simplest route, which is going to be to just give them takeoff clearance. And their call sign is Endeavour 5438. We maybe need to move that American, though. American 2131, runway 04 via Alpha. Because there's that American. And we need to get them going before Southwest cuts in front of them. We should be alright there. Anyway, let's get these departures out and I'll show you what I mean. So the simplest one is to say, Endeavour 5438, runway 04, cleared for takeoff. So the aircraft will now taxi onto the runway. They'll pause for a moment when they get there, and then they'll power up and off they go. You'll see, look there, they're going to pause for a moment. Now the sounds will kick in. And they'll power up, and off they go. Very slowly. So as I've said, there's multiple ways that you can give them takeoff clearance. One thing that's important to note here is that I've just told them to take off. I will still manually have to tell them to contact departure once they are in the air. Southwest has just disappeared there because they've reached their gate. And we need to give American clearance to land. American 2944, runway 13, clear to land. Endeavour is on its way, and once they're in the air, they will appear on the radar screen here, as you'll see. Once they do that, I'm going to tell them manually to contact departure. Endeavour 5438, contact departure. And they go grey as soon as they do that. Now let's go through the next variation of getting an aircraft to take off. So you saw that the first one got onto the runway and then paused for a moment, and then got going. What you can do instead is tell them to just have immediate takeoff. So you would say, Brickyard 3467, runway 04, cleared for immediate takeoff. So what they're going to do now is taxi onto the runway. They're not going to do that little pause that you saw before, and they're just going to go straight for it and crack on as soon as they can. This is helpful just to save those odd few seconds when you've got arrival after arrival on the way in. Now, that's bad for me to be doing a how-to video and mess it up. Struggling to figure out how I've messed up that badly. Ah, yeah, American 2944 is on approach, and I've just given them takeoff clearance. This is why I don't play crossed runways. But still, I'm only human, and this is a good example and a place to show you how to delete an aircraft. So we'll click Brickyard 3467, go over to F6 and click Delete. And as you'll see now, the aircraft is gone. That's always helpful if you need to delete an aircraft in a nose-to-nose situation, so you can then carry on playing the game. So now we're just going to wait for Americans to touch down, but it's another good chance to show you another command. So the next aircraft in line is Brickyard 4788, and we're going to tell them to Brickyard 4788, runway 04, line up and wait. You can tell them to do that, or line up and wait behind next landing aircraft, which basically means next time an aircraft goes over the threshold and touches down in front of them, they will line up behind it and start powering up slightly, getting ready to go. Admittedly, I've just deleted the other aircraft for now, just so I can show you these examples. So we'll see here that Brickyard has now lined up and is ready to go. You can tell them to contact departure once they get to a certain altitude, which means that you don't have to worry about doing it manually yourself afterwards. We need to give Spirit Wings some clearance here, but I don't want them to come in, so I'm going to tell them to Spirit Wings 224, go around. You can see they're now increasing their speed and altitude. Get out of my airspace. Trying to do a tutorial here. Oh, they've not called up yet, so we can't tell them anything. That's important to know. You can't tell them anything until they've come into your airspace where these red lines are, and then you've heard them call up for clearance. So we're going to give Brickyard clearance to take off now, and we're going to tell them to contact departure before they've even left the runway.
Tower, Delta 1057 on final 04.
Great timing, love. Delta 1057, go around. You still have to tell them to contact departure as well. Spirit Wings 224, contact departure. Right, hopefully we'll get some peace now. Brickyard 4788, runway 04, cleared for immediate takeoff. Upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. So basically they will automatically contact departure when they get to a certain height, which means you don't have to remember to manually do that later. And now we're going to combine that all together once Brickyard is out of here. Now, I appreciate at this point, I've not shown you a very good way of playing the game. I just wanted to show you the different aspects and the individual little elements and the commands that you need to do certain things. Sometimes you'll get aircraft that need to cross runways, for example, to taxi to certain spots. Sometimes here at LaGuardia, if you're using runway 22 to go out that way, then you'll get the aircraft taxiing down Bravo onto Papa, and then as they go onto Romeo, they'll need to cross runway 13 or 31. So what you'll tell them is while they're taxiing, you'll just say Endeavour 4345, cross runway 13, and they will not even hesitate when they get to it, and they will just go across. Otherwise, they'll tell you that they're holding short of the runway and ask for permission to cross it. You will, however, never get them call up and say that they're holding short of the runway ready to take off. And for one more command, we're going to get American out of here in one fell swoop, so we're going to tell them this. American 2131, runway 04, cleared for immediate takeoff upon reaching altitude 1000, contact departure. And if we quickly go to our radar screen, you'll see Brickyard has now gone through 2,000 feet and contacted departure, so they've gone grey. The aircraft are still your responsibility while this top part is yellow. You need to remember that. They do go grey and contact departure when they've been handed off and dealt with elsewhere. I found an interesting audio bug here actually. I deleted an aircraft that was on a takeoff run and it seems to, well, its sound has been left behind, which is quite an interesting one. But here comes the American Airbus, and there goes said American Airbus. If we pop over to the radar screen, you'll see what happens when they get in the air. We've got Delta going overhead at 12,000 feet, so this may get slightly in the way. We'll move their tag out of the way like that. And American 2131 should show up here any moment now. And there you go. So you see how they're yellow on that part there? That means they're still sort of in our responsibility. That's their altitude there to the nearest 100 feet and their airspeed. So once that says 010, that means they're at 1,000 feet and that'll go grey. Just like that, which means they've contacted departure. They look like they're close together, but one's at 13,700, now 800 feet, and the other's at 1,000 feet. Nothing to worry about there. And that is hopefully a good enough how-to. Now, I'm terrible when it comes to crossing runways and keeping things all organised. You've seen what my YouTube videos are like so far. I love this game to pieces, though, and I'm working with the guys to try and help just improve it, and obviously work with everybody in the Discord as well to improve it. It's a very busy place, the FeelThere Discord, but still, I really hope you've been enjoying these videos, and it's great to see that some of you have as well, so thank you for that. Shut up! And I know, yes, I've made some mistakes here, but I still just want to show you those individual elements, like I've said. So, hopefully this has cleared up a lot of it for you. If there are still any questions, pop them in the description. No, pop them in the comments below, and I will hopefully get back to you as soon as I can. That's all for now, though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.